So this is one of my favorite parts of hooks. When hooks were released with React, I was just blown away by how nice and how easy it is to take some logic inside of a component and put it into a reusable piece of logic. So let's take a look at building a custom hook for this. So we're actually not going to change any behavior or anything, but what we're going to do is take this logic that we have right here and make it so that we can reuse that anywhere in our application. Anywhere that we want to have some state that is synchronized with local storage, we can reuse this. So take a step back, don't think about React, just think about how you take some pieces of code and abstract them, making them available for people to use, in anywhere in their code base. The way that we do this is we make a function. And so I'm going to make a function and we'll call it sync local storage with state. I don't know, you can call it whatever you want to. And now we'll take this stuff, move it up here. And then we just need to genericize it. Ignore these red underlines for a little bit. We'll get to those soon. So let's see, what do we need from that? Let's go ahead and call this function right here. And then what are the things that we need here? Well, we need the state and the mechanism for updating the state. So what if we make our function resemble the useState hook that we had before? So we'll have our name and our set name right here. Okay, so that takes care of all of this. Now we need to make this do the same thing. So we'll just return name and set name. And then let's see what else this needs. Well, we need that initial name value here. So we can pass that initial name right here, and we'll take that initial name right there. And if we save that, we're going to get a big warning that it failed to compile, and that's because of some of these React warnings. But if we get rid of those, here, for now, we'll just disable this for the whole file. Now, we can take a look at this. It actually works. Like, hello world, totally works. We didn't have to do any fancy React stuff. It all let's just take this code, we'll put it in this function and pass some arguments, return some values, and then poof, it's all working. And that's just because the design of hooks was designed specifically so that you can make reusable code work exactly the same way as you do with regular JavaScript functions. Now let's take this a step further because this isn't quite as generic as I want it to be. First of all, we're not always going to be storing a name with the key of name. So what I'm going to do is accept a key, and then instead of initial name, we'll call this the default value. And we'll default that value, so they don't have to pass us a default value, to a empty string. And then we'll pass that as the default value. Okay, so now we're going to come in here and we'll set this to name. And then the next thing that we need to do is take that key and pass it here. So we'll say key, and there we go. Now we're getting this yellow underline here, and that's because we're missing the key from the dependency array. So we're using the key here, and we're not passing it here. So if the key were to change, then the state of the world would fall out of sync with the state of our app. So let's go ahead and pass the key in here as well. Or even better, we can make the ESLint plugin do that for us, which is cool. And then let's just make the variable names a little more generic. So we'll just call this simply state and set state. And then in here, instead of name, these will be state, and this will be set state, just to make it a little bit more generic for the use of ourselves here. And that all still totally works. It's working beautifully. Hello there. Cool stuff. Okay, so let's figure out what this ESLint rule was complaining about. What's going on here is it's saying, hey, you're breaking the rules of hooks. So useState is called in a function sync local storage with state, which is neither a React function component or a custom React hook function. And this is actually because of a convention that the React team has given us so that this ESLint rule can do this type of a check. So it's not actually technically required for things to work, but if you follow this convention, then you can get a lot more help from this ESLint plugin. And so that's why we're going to rename this from sync local storage with state to something that starts with the use prefix, which is the convention. So functions that start with the use are considered to be custom hooks. So we're going to say use local storage state. And now we get rid of that warning, and React can treat this function like a custom hook, so it can apply some of its ESLint niceties to the code for this hook. But the key thing that I want you to pull away from this is what makes a custom hook isn't that the function starts with use, but that it uses other hooks inside of it. So all a custom hook is is a function that uses hooks. And those hooks can be built-in hooks like what we're doing here, or they can be other custom hooks. So you can compose these things together. So in review, all that we did here was we had some logic inside our greeting component in here, and we wanted to reuse that in other places of our application. So we created a function and moved that logic up in here. We added some parameters, returned some values, and genericized some stuff, and we're totally off to the races with this, which I think is totally awesome.